Hello people, this is a brief tutorial video for my Archviz Asset Pack made for Unreal Engine Marketplace. I will walk you through the basic features available within my pack. Keep in mind that this is a brief tutorial which will focus on only the basics that are available to you inside the editor. For more in-depth info, you can check the documentation file that is available on my Marketplace page. So let's jump in. Materials. Materials are located here in the material folder. All of the assets use instances of three main master materials. All of the master materials are located here in the master folder. Within this folder are three master materials and the reference texture maps that are used in each master material. So let's start with this m_master material. This material is created for tiling materials and uses world space projection. All of the ground and wall materials are instances of this master material. Let's click one of them and see the material instances and its tweakable parameters. Here is the material instance parameters for this m_master material instance. There are several tweakable parameters available to you, and these parameters are almost the same with every material instance, with little differences, and those differences depend on which of these master materials the material instance is derived from. For this particular material, the material instance parameters are here. Let's go through every one of them, starting from the bottom. Here in the tint section, you can change the overall tint of the parameter. Here in the texture parameter value section, you can see the texture maps used in this particular material. What this section allows you to do is, let's say you didn't like this material and you want to use your own material, then all you have to do is drag and drop your texture maps with their corresponding places, and you can have your own materials in the project. For demonstration, let's say you don't want this parquet material and instead you want to use a grass material, and you imported your texture maps, and here are them. All you have to do is drag and drop your texture maps, like base color here, normal map here, roughness here, and if you have an ambient occlusion map, you can enable here and drag and drop your ambient occlusion map, and you have your own material. Here you can check here and you can tweak the roughness intensity. You can increase your roughness or decrease your roughness. Let's see, like this. And you can tweak your ambient occlusion intensity as well. The UV controls part here lets you tweak the tiling of this material. Because this material uses world space projection, I use the 3 constant vector parameter to define the tiling of this material. Here in the red, green and blue channels, let's say, each channel represents the tiling of the individual axes. For instance, red channel defines the x-axis tiling, green defines the y tiling, and blue defines the z tiling. And if you change the numbers here, let's say 256, 6, as you can see, you can change the tiling. And since this uses world space projection, it doesn't matter how much you scale this object, and it will still look smooth. And you can duplicate this, and the same principles goes for the duplicate as well. Here are some switches that you can use. As you might guess, you don't see a metallic map here because this material isn't a metallic surface. However, if you want to use a metallic surface, you can come here and turn this metallic on-off switch on, and this immediately gives you an option to import a metallic map. And here you get an additional parameter, metallic intensity parameter, that lets you the intensity of your metallic map. If you don't want to use a metallic map but still want a metallic surface, then you can still turn this on, which gives you the option to tweak this metallic intensity parameter, and then you can tweak the overall metallic metallic intensity. By default, because this material isn't a metallic surface, it is switched off. The same principle goes for emissive on-off switch as well. If you want to use an emissive map, you can turn this on, and this gives you an option to import an emissive map. And here is the emissive intensity parameter, which lets you tweak your overall emissive intensity of your emissive map. Again, because this isn't an emissive material, this is by default switched off. And finally, for these switches, there's a displacement on-off option as well. If you want to use a displacement material, you can turn this on, and this gives you an option to import a height map. And here you can tweak the tessellation strength and tessellation amount of your height map. Because this isn't a tessellated material, by default this is turned off. Finally, all of the master materials gives you the option to use whether 1K texture maps, 2K texture maps, or 4K texture maps, and they are all embedded in the master materials. Here we are using a 1K texture map, and if we come here to 2K on-off switch, as soon as we turn this on, the material uses 2K texture maps. And an additional parameter options are here, which lets you use your own 2K texture maps if you want to do so. And the same goes for 4K option here. As soon as you turn this on, the material then switches to 4K texture maps. And that's it for m_master material instance. Let's see the other material instances as well. This m_master_packed material is created for channel packed textures. Most of the assets use this master packed material instances because most of them uses channel packed textures. Let's see this one in action. Here is the material instance parameter options for master packed material. As you can see, the parameters are almost the same as this m_master material instance parameters, with little differences. Here, in the texture parameter values, you can see the main difference. There's only 3 texture maps. One for base color, one for normal map, and one for packed maps. I use Substance Painter, and because of that I created this master packed material with Substance Painter configuration. And the configuration is as follows. Red channel is for ambient occlusion map, green channel is for roughness map, and blue channel for metallic map. So if you want to use your own materials or texture maps, keep that in mind. Moving on, here is the subsurface scattering option, which lets you increase or decrease the subsurface scattering of an object. If you want to use a material with subsurface scattering, you can change its intensity here. I specifically created this subsurface scattering parameter for my candles, but you can have a variety of assets that you can use. Additionally, here in the subsurface scattering tint option, you can change the overall tint for your subsurface scattering as well. We again have a roughness intensity parameter here. We have a metallic intensity parameter. We don't have a separate switch for metallic intensity because as soon as we import a channel packed texture map here, we feed a metallic information to the shader, and thus a switch for metallic is a bit obsolete here. Here is again ambient occlusion intensity. You can change your ambient occlusion map intensity here. Tint lets you tweak the overall tint of the parameter. Here we again have an emissive on-off switch, so if you want to use a material with emissive map, you can turn this on, and this option will immediately give you a separate parameter that you can import your emissive map. Like this turned off, and as soon as we turn it off, we have an emissive map section here. And we have an emissive intensity parameter here. We can tweak how intense our emissive map is. We also have an additional option here called the emissive tint, which let us change the tint of our emissive material. We have again a displacement on-off switch here, and if you want to use a displacement material, you can turn this on, and this will give you an option to import a height map here. As soon as you import a height map, you will have the option of the tessellation strength, which gives you the option to tweak how strong your tessellation will be, and the tessellation amount here, which lets you tweak the amount of vertices that will be included in the tessellation action, let's say. Finally, this master pack material also has the option to use whether 1K texture maps, 2K texture maps, or 4K texture maps. And once you check this 2K section on, you immediately use the 2K texture maps. And the same goes for 4K texture maps as well. So if you want to use your own 4K textures, for instance, you can switch this on and drag and drop your textures here. And same goes for 2K maps as well. And that's it for master packed material. The master underscore opacity material is almost the same as this packed material, but for materials with opacity or alpha information. Let's see it in action. So this is the material instance parameters for master opacity material. This material also uses substance painter configuration. The alpha channel of the base color texture map contains the opacity information. So as soon as you import your base color texture map here, you will get the opacity map as well. Feed it to the shader, and you can just tweak your opacity intensity here. That's it for master opacity material. The other materials that are different than the master materials can be found here in the material folder. Inside the folder, you can find a glass material, a mirror material, and a separate pool material with caustic effects. Let's check everyone in action. Here is the material instance parameters of our glass material. Let's start with the easiest ones. Base color represents the color of our glass material. The roughness is the roughness of our glass material. You can tweak it here. Here are refraction, reflection, and opacity parameters for the front of our material and for our sides of our material. Refraction side lets you tweak the refraction amount of the side of our material. And refraction front does the exact same thing for our front for the front of the material here. Reflection is how much light reflects from our material, and here you can tweak how it's reflected from the sides and from the front. You can see the differences here more clearly. The opacity is how opaque our material from the sides and from the front. And power is how strong our refraction and reflection options are. Here is our mirror material. It's a fairly simple material, but its metallic and roughness values tweak to their extremes. The important part here is mirror materials, reflective materials, by default uses screen space reflections, meaning they will only reflect what your screen sees. For instance, as soon as we see this part of the scene, it is reflected on the mirror here, and as soon as we are out of that, we lose our reflection. A way to get more realistic reflections, you can use a planar reflection. I've already set up a planar reflection capture and I turned it off, so now I'm turning it on, and now we get a more realistic reflection. You can come here in the visual effects, and here you can find the planar reflection capture, and you can drag it to your scene and adjust its scale so it will fit your material here, and you turn this off and set it up like I do, and you will have much nicer reflections. Keep in mind that you need to enable some settings in the project settings in order to make planar reflection work properly. As soon as you're in the project settings tab here, you can type planar, and here support global clip plane for planar reflections. You need to turn this on, and as soon as you turn this on, the engine will ask you to restart your editor. So as soon as you restart, you will get proper reflections from your planar reflection capture. Keep this in mind when you're using the mirror material. Finally, here is the material instance parameters for our pool material. Here you can enable or disable the caucastic effects, and as soon as you enable this, you will have your caucastics and caucastics parameters here. Here you can adjust the brightness of the caucastic effect, the tiling, the contrast, and speed. That's it for materials. Blueprints. Blueprints are located under the utility folder here inside blueprints. There are 5 blueprints available to use. First off, BP_candle blueprint is a candle blueprint that gives you the option to turn the lights and particle on and off. Once you tick here, you will have a candle particle and a light attached to the blueprint. Here you can increase the light intensity and light radius. And here in the light color section, you can change the color of light to get a different mood in the scene. The BP_painting blueprint is a paint canvas actor that can showcase a variety of different images. Here in the details panel, you can choose which image to showcase. You have 6 images that you can use, and you can duplicate this blueprint and choose different images that these actors will showcase individually. Thus, you can use this blueprint as a scene dressing tool. The remaining 3 blueprints serve the same purpose with different meshes in use, but working principles of each one is the same. Let's take this one for instance. Here in the details panel, you will see a parameter called particle visibility. Once you turn this on, you will see a water particle attached to the blueprint. You can turn this on and off. Another feature is that a collision box is attached to this blueprint, which lets you interact with this object in runtime. Once you're inside the collision box, pressing E key will activate it, and then pressing E key again will deactivate it. Keep in mind that if you turn this off, then you won't be able to see the water particle in the runtime as well, even though if you get interactive with it. The other 2 blueprints work exactly the same way. Let's take this one as well. And you can interact with them the same way as you do with this one. You can come here, press E, and press E again, and the same goes for this one as well. that's it for blueprints. Decals. Decals are located under the utility folder inside decals file. There are several preset decals that can be used, and each decal material is derived from this single m_decal master material. Inside smoke decals folder, you can find several preset smoke decals. You can drag and drop them to your scene and use them in any way you want. I mainly use these decals with my fireplace static mesh, but you can use them as scene dressing in your own scene in any way you want to use. Each decal material has its own set of parameters that can be tweaked within the editor. In the bottom section of this parameter section, you can see which texture map is used with this decal. You can import your own texture maps and use them to create custom decals as well. You can find a general roughness intensity value that you can tweak here. You have an opacity intensity. Maybe you can see better like this. You have a metallic intensity and an emissive intensity. Here you can change the overall tint of your decal material. And here the roughness map on off switch lets you use custom roughness maps if you want to use them. Once you tick this on, you get an additional texture parameter value for a custom roughness map. You can tick this on and use a custom texture map or grange map if you want to do so. I will use a texture map that is available in this pack. Let's use this one for instance. You drag and drop your texture here and you get a custom roughness map. Here in the painting decals folder, you can find several painting decals that you can use together with this painting canvas static mesh. You have the option to use a couple of painting decals, and these decals are the same as this BP painting blueprint decals. If you want to use them separately, you can find them here. Finally, you can create your own custom decals by creating a material instance of this master decal material. So custom decal. Let's drag and drop this one and open the material instance. Here you can tick this texture map section here and import a custom texture map. For demonstration purposes, let's use one that is already available to us in the pack. Let's use this one. We can drag and drop this texture and you can tweak its parameters to have a custom decal that we can use. You can import your own grange maps or texture maps and create your own custom decals. And that's it for decals. Candle flame is a candle flame particle that can be used with the candle mesh that is available in the pack. Here it is in action. Fire particle is a fire system that I used with my fireplace mesh. But you can use it in any way you like, of course. Finally, under the water folder, water drops particle is a water system that you can use with the faucets and sinks available in the pack. And this is it for the particles. Audio. Audio files are located under the utility folder inside this audio folder. There are 4 sound waves that you can use. All of these sound waves are referenced within these 3 sound cues. Let's check them out. And that's it for audio. Utilities. Finally, I want to briefly talk about some less relevant assets inside the utility folder. Texture Maps folder contains all of the texture maps that are used by the assets included in the pack. Texture maps are also separated by their categories and texture resolutions as well. HDRI folder contains an HDRI master material along with a material instance and an HDRI map. In order to use the HDRI map, you can come here in the content browser to the engine content and type editor sky sphere here. You can drag and drop this to your scene, and in the material section here you can come to here in the utilities and HDRI. You can drag and drop this material instance and you have a sky sphere. You can scale this to your liking. Let's open the HDRI material instance here. Here in the tint section you can change the overall tint of the HDRI map. Here you can change the rotation, the contrast, and the brightness. You can also use your own HDRI maps here by enabling this HDRI map in texture parameter values. I only have one HDRI included in the pack, but you can use your own HDRI maps if you want to do so. Only thing you need to do is drag and drop your HDRI map here and you will have a custom HDRI. And that's it for utilities. This is the end of my tutorial. I hope this was helpful. For the in-depth technical data, you can always check the documentation file from the marketplace page. If you need any help with the pack, feel free to contact me anytime. Take care and thank you for checking out my pack.